thermal array did not allow for structural anomalies. High Proctor Vale Soren adjusted the main terminal grid, his chitinous digits locking the input commands into the obsidian framework of chamber matrix 09. On his display, 52 elite biosignatures glowed with steady, high-intensity gold light, each representing a perfect imperial lineage trained for command. The 53rd slot showed only a flat, gray baseline. Kira Vance stood in that designated slot, her short human frame clad in non-insulated gray cotton that didn't register on the high-spectrum heat sensors. She held a flat cardboard container against her forearm, her thumbs tracing the gray-stained edges of the fiber lid, while the automated intake seals slapped into their floor grooves with a wet, heavy echo. The hegemony spent 3 centuries refining this chamber to kill. Stay close, because what happened when the liquid cleared wasn't in our manuals. 3 hours before the deluge, the intake dock smelled of clean grease and fresh chemicals. Vale Soren stepped down from the proctorial observation deck, his 8-foot frame casting a segmented shadow across the gathered candidates. He did not look at the human civilian directly, but his lower optic sensors flagged her lack of armor. Every other cadet wore heavy thermal plating designed to distribute exothermic shock across multi-layered alloys. Vance simply leaned against the primary pressure seal, her boots scuffing the polished floor plating as she adjusted her grip on the square cellulose package. The Xeno cadet beside her, a heavy-scaled vanguard candidate named Zalren, let out a sharp hiss of high-stress pheromones that rattled the ventilation grates. Vance did not flinch. She merely turned the box over to inspect the white paper seal on the side. Vale Soren returned to his console and initiated the primary diagnostic sequence. He struck the authorization pad, and the heavy obsidian doors slid into place, cutting off the intake dock and locking the 52 elite lines inside the hazard zone. The automated facility screens flashed with biological readiness warnings, their red light bathing the candidates in a uniform crimson glare. Zalren took a wide combat stance, his internal respiratory gills swelling as he prepared to filter the upcoming atmospheric shift. Vance did not shift her feet. Instead, she sat down directly on the central drainage pedestal, placed the cardboard container on her knees, and pulled the paper tab to break the factory seal. The proctor didn't hesitate. He manually overrode the standard warm-up cycle, driving the chamber acidity parameters straight down to pH 0.4. The sudden drop triggered the overhead distribution matrix, and a thick, bright amber fluid began to hiss through the localized spray grids. The mineral bite of iron-filtered air vanished instantly, replaced by the heavy sulfur tang of spent coolant as the acid struck the top tier of candidates. Zalren screamed first, his specialized outer scales blistering and bubbling as the fluid began to react with his organic lipids. Vale Soren watched the metabolic stress columns on his terminal spike into the critical red zone, his mandibular joints twitching as the data poured in. The primary deluge opened at full pressure. The amber downpour cascaded from the ceiling grids in a solid wall of liquid fire, filling the obsidian pit with a dense, boiling mist. Within 90 seconds, the gold biosignatures on the proctor's screen began to fracture. The Xeno cadets threw themselves against the sealed walls, their reinforced armor plating melting into a white, smoking slag that fused their limbs to the deck. Zalren collapsed into the primary drainage channel, his double lungs flooding with the caustic solution before his core signature flatlined into absolute static. One by one, the elite genetic lines of the Sarnian hegemony dissolved into a dark, steaming slurry that washed toward the automated runoff grates. Vale Soren slammed his claw onto the terminal interface, forcing a triple manual override of the imaging suite. The main console was reporting total liquidation of columns 1 through 52, but column 53 remained perfectly active. He adjusted his high-spectrum lens, zooming the primary optic matrix directly onto the central drainage pedestal. The heat signature display showed a massive exothermic boil across the entire floor, where the acid was cooking the remains of the candidate class at lethal temperatures. But where the human girl sat, the display showed an impossible, cold void. The lens registered her core temperature at exactly 36.6 degrees C, showing zero metabolic variance and zero structural decay. Through the yellow acid fog, Kira Vance lifted a triangular slice of pizza from her grease-stained box. The caustic rain cascaded off her dark hair and ran down the sleeves of her cotton shirt, but the fluid simply slid off her skin like clean morning water on stone. She took a slow, unbothered bite, her jaw moving with a steady, rhythmic pattern that registered on the audio sensors as a low-frequency hum. The acid pooled around her boots, melting the heavy iron studs of the drainage pedestal beneath her, but her bare fingers remained entirely untouched as she held the bread crust. She did not look at the bones washing past her ankles. She kept her eyes fixed on the nutritional label printed on the discarded box lid. The proctor ran a complete system hardware check, his breathing gills rattling against his chest plates as he tried to find the source of the technical error. His instruments were perfectly calibrated, measuring the exact mass, duration, and density of the chemical volume inside the room. The compound was active, the heat was real, and the destruction of the 52 lineages was absolute. Yet the human subject didn't display an engine under strain. She displayed nothing at all. Her body didn't even activate its natural defense mechanisms because its baseline chemistry didn't recognize the environment as a threat. To the system, her presence was an error because it had no scale to measure absolute indifference. A soft click echoed through the intercom as Vance finished the first slice. She picked up a small paper napkin from the cardboard container, wiped a drop of amber fluid from her wrist, and tossed the crumpled paper into the dissolving slurry at her feet. The paper vanished into foam instantly, but her skin beneath it remained pale and dry. She reached back into the flat container for a second piece, her movements fluid and entirely devoid of the defensive panic that had killed the Vanguard cadets. Vale Soren altered the filtration parameters to clear the steam, his claws shaking against the console keys as he realized his entire methodology had just collapsed. The automated countdown timer on the wall hit 0, and the primary distribution valves shut off with a sharp pneumatic crack. The automated drainage system engaged, and 4,000 liters of contaminated chemical runoff shrieked through the floor valves, leaving the obsidian walls smoking and sterile. The thick amber mist cleared completely, revealing the wide, empty floor of Matrix 09. 52 empty sets of melted thermal armor lay scattered across the grates, their heavy alloys warped into unidentifiable shapes. In the center of the devastation, Vance stood up, folded the cardboard square box lid back into its original shape, and tucked it neatly under her arm. She walked toward the primary exit gate, her wet boots leaving clear, circular tracks on the hot obsidian deck. She stopped directly beneath the observation mirror, looking up toward the hidden cameras with an expressionless, unreadable gaze. Her hands straightened the hem of her damp shirt twice before she reached out and pressed the communication panel. The atmospheric system in this facility is exceptionally dry, Vance said, her voice dropping clearly through the proctor's audio interface without a single tremor. Is the evaluation cycle concluded? I need to find a water dispenser. Vale Soren did not hit the speaker reply. He reached out with a trembling digit and manually terminated the diagnostic data loop, sealing the archive under his personal administrative security clearance before the central network could flag the results. He deleted the automated failure logs, expunged the metabolic records of slot 53, and locked the terminal with a master encryption key. The High Council would receive a report of a structural containment failure, a routine technical glitch that required the immediate closure of the sector. He looked back down at the empty floor through the reinforced viewport, his 4 optic sensors tracking the single, grease-stained piece of corrugated gray fiber that Vance had left behind on the iron pedestal. The gray fiber remained stuck inside the iron teeth of the primary drainage grate as the automated cleaning cycles began. The system is designed to catalog every death in the galaxy, but it has no algorithm for a creature that treats our entire trial like a brief lunch break.